the banned book. According to an ancient tradition, a group of 200 heavenly beings descended upon the peak of Mount Hermon. They were known as the Watchers. These spiritual entities swore a solemn oath to take human wives and teach humanity forbidden knowledge, including metallurgy, astrology, and the arts of war. Their rebellion led to the birth of giant offspring known as the Nephilim, plunging the ancient world into unimaginable violence and corruption. This dramatic narrative does not come from the Book of Genesis. It is the opening conflict of the Book of Enoch, a sweeping apocalyptic text claiming to record the visions of Noah's great-grandfather. For centuries, this manuscript was widely read, deeply respected, and treated with immense reverence by both Jewish and early Christian communities. But if you open a standard Bible today, you will not find the Book of Enoch. It is completely absent from the Catholic, Protestant, and Eastern Orthodox canons. So what exactly happened? Why was a text so influential in the ancient world ultimately left out of most Bibles? A popular modern myth claims that the Vatican hid the book in a secret vault, or that a shadowy council of bishops banned it to suppress forbidden spiritual truths. But the historical reality is far more fascinating and much more complex. By the end of this investigation, we will discover how this extraordinary text went from being quoted as scripture to being entirely rejected by the Western Church. The most surprising detail about the Book of Enoch is not just that early Christians read it. It is that the New Testament itself actually quotes it. In the short epistle of Jude, written in the 1st century, the author explicitly cites a prophecy from Enoch. Jude writes that Enoch, the seventh from Adam, prophesied about the Lord coming with thousands of his holy ones to execute judgment. This quotation is nearly identical to a passage found in the 1st chapter of the Book of Enoch. For many early readers, this created a profound theological contradiction. If an inspired New Testament author considered Enoch's words to be authoritative prophecy, why did later generations discard the book? To understand this mystery, we must look at how the earliest Christians actually viewed the text. During the 1st and 2nd centuries, the Book of Enoch was not considered forbidden or heretical. In fact, several highly influential church fathers defended it. The early Christian apologist Tertullian argued fiercely that the Book of Enoch should be considered sacred scripture. He believed it contained authentic prophecies about the coming of Christ, and he suggested that it had survived the Great Flood because Noah preserved his great-grandfather's writings. Justin Martyr, another prominent early Christian thinker, was deeply influenced by Enoch's narrative about the fallen angels. He used the text to explain the origins of pagan idolatry, arguing that the ancient gods worshipped by the Romans were actually the demonic spirits left behind by the Nephilim. For these early believers, the Book of Enoch provided crucial answers to questions that the Book of Genesis left unresolved. Genesis briefly mentions the sons of God taking human wives, but it offers almost no detail. Enoch fills in the gaps. It provides names for the fallen angels. It explains exactly what they taught humanity. It describes their terrifying judgment, and it offers vivid, complex descriptions of heaven, hell, and the throne of God. Because of this rich spiritual imagery, the text remained wildly popular for hundreds of years. Yet, as the Christian Church moved into the 3rd and 4th centuries, a slow but definitive shift began to occur. The ancient world was changing, and the wild, apocalyptic visions of Enoch were beginning to make religious leaders increasingly uncomfortable. The Book of Enoch was not destroyed overnight. Instead, it became the center of a quiet, centuries-long debate about what truly belonged in the sacred canon. Continuo para a proxima parte duois? As the early Christian movement grew and developed its official theology, a major shift in how leaders viewed the spiritual realm began to take shape. In the earliest days of the faith, the idea that angels could descend to earth, take physical form, and father giant children was widely accepted. It aligned with ancient Jewish traditions and provided a clear explanation for the rampant evil that caused the Great Flood. But by the 3rd and 4th centuries, prominent theologians began to view this concept with deep suspicion. One of the most influential voices against the Book of Enoch was Saint Augustine of Hippo. Augustine was a towering figure in early Christian history, and his theological frameworks shaped the Western Church for centuries to come. When he examined the story of the Watchers, Augustine found the literal interpretation deeply problematic. He argued that angels were purely spiritual beings. They did not have flesh, they did not have physical desires, and they certainly could not reproduce with human women. To resolve the mystery of the sons of God mentioned in Genesis, Augustine proposed a completely different interpretation. He argued that the sons of God were not angels at all. Instead, they were human beings. Specifically, they were the righteous descendants of Seth, the third son of Adam and Eve. According to this view, the daughters of men were the descendants of Cain, the first murderer. The great sin that caused the flood was not a cosmic rebellion of fallen angels, but simply the intermarriage between a righteous human lineage and a wicked one. This explanation, known as the Sethite view, rapidly gained popularity in the Western Church. It was logical, it avoided the messy theological implications of physical angels, and it firmly closed the door on the wild apocalyptic visions of Enoch. As the Sethite view became the dominant Orthodox position, the Book of Enoch transitioned from a revered sacred text to an uncomfortable theological liability. Church leaders began to actively discourage its reading. By the time the final lists of the biblical canon were being formalized across the Roman Empire, Enoch was quietly left out. Interestingly, the Christian Church was not the only religious body to reject the text. Around the same time that Christian theologians were adopting the Sethite view, rabbinic Jewish leaders were also distancing themselves from Enoch. Following the destruction of the Second Temple in Jerusalem in the year 70, Jewish authorities sought to unify their scattered people around a strict, defined set of scriptures. The apocalyptic fervor of books like Enoch was seen as dangerous, especially after it had fueled disastrous rebellions against the Roman Empire. Prominent rabbis explicitly condemned the belief in fallen angels, warning those who taught that the sons of God were divine beings. Thus, by a strange twist of history, both Western Christians and rabbinic Jews independently decided to suppress the very text that had profoundly shaped their ancestors. For centuries after this theological shift, the Book of Enoch essentially vanished from Western civilization. It became a lost book, whispered about by medieval scholars who only knew it from the brief quotation in the Epistle of Jude. Many European theologians even began to suspect that the book had never really existed as an ancient Jewish text. They argued that the surviving fragments must have been later forgeries created by early Christians trying to retroactively justify the New Testament quotation. But that assumption was shattered in the 18th century, and the proof did not come from a secret vault in the Vatican. It came from the highlands of Africa. While the Roman and Byzantine churches had rejected the text, one ancient Christian community had never stopped reading it. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church, one of the oldest Christian bodies in the world, had preserved the Book of Enoch in its entirety. In the Ethiopian tradition, Enoch was never marginalized. It was considered fully canonical, inspired scripture, and it was copied carefully generation after generation in the ancient Ge'ez language. When European explorers finally brought a complete Ethiopian manuscript back to the West in the year 1773, the academic world was stunned. The book was not a medieval forgery. It was a massive, complex apocalypse filled with detailed prophecies. Yet, a lingering doubt remained among skeptical scholars. They questioned whether the Ethiopian text truly matched the ancient version read by the first Christians. The final, undeniable proof emerged in the year 1947 when Bedouin shepherds stumbled upon the Dead Sea Scrolls. Hidden in clay jars for nearly 2,000 years, these manuscripts offered a perfectly preserved window into the ancient world. The sheer number of Enoch fragments found in the Qumran caves was staggering. The discovery proved beyond any doubt that the text was older than Christianity itself. It confirmed that the Ethiopian Church had faithfully preserved an authentic ancient masterpiece. Continuo para approxima parte tres. The sheer volume of Enoch fragments found among the Dead Sea Scrolls revealed something astonishing. The ancient Jewish community living at Qumran possessed more copies of the Book of Enoch than they did of many traditional biblical books. Scholars identified fragments from nearly every major section of the text, including the Book of the Watchers and the astronomical book. This proved that during the time of Jesus and the apostles, the text was not considered obscure, marginal, or heretical. It was a mainstream piece of religious literature, deeply influential to those anticipating a cosmic judgment. So, if the text was undeniably ancient and undeniably important to the first generation of believers, we must return to our central question. Why did the leaders of the Christian Church ultimately and permanently exclude it from the official Bible? To answer this, we must dispel one of the most enduring myths about biblical history. The canon of Scripture was not decided in a single weekend by a shadowy council of bishops seeking to hide forbidden knowledge. There was no secret, smoky room where powerful men voted to suppress the truth about the Watchers. Instead, the formation of the Bible was a slow, organic, and highly decentralized process that took centuries to finalize. Church leaders did not dictate what people should read. They looked for texts that were already being universally read in the daily gatherings of Christians across the entire Roman Empire. Books that were deemed canonical had to meet specific criteria. They needed to be tied to a recognized apostle or prophet. They had to align with orthodox teachings about the nature of God, and they had to be widely used by the global church from east to west. The Book of Enoch simply failed to maintain that universal usage. As we have seen, the Western Church became deeply uncomfortable with its underlying theology. The idea of physical angels abandoning their heavenly posts to produce giant human offspring clashed with the developing philosophical frameworks of the time. Because prominent leaders like Augustine actively discouraged its reading, local churches slowly stopped copying it. Furthermore, the Book of Enoch suffered from a severe language barrier. The text was originally written in ancient Aramaic and Hebrew, and later translated into Greek. But as the Roman Empire split, the Western Church adopted Latin as its primary language of theology and worship. Without a widely circulated Latin translation, the book essentially disappeared from the minds of Western European Christians. When historic councils eventually gathered to formally list the accepted books, Enoch was not violently banned. It was simply forgotten, left behind by a changing world that no longer found its wild, apocalyptic visions useful. But the story of the biblical canon is not identical everywhere, and the survival of the text proves this fact perfectly. While the Greek and Latin churches abandoned the manuscript, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church embraced it wholeheartedly. For the Christians of the Horn of Africa, the Book of Enoch never lost its sacred authority. They translated it into their own ancient liturgical language, carefully copying the intricate details of Enoch's journeys through the heavens and his terrifying warnings about the final judgment. To this day, the complete Book of Enoch is fully integrated into the Ethiopian Bible, standing alongside Genesis, Isaiah, and the Gospels. What the historical evidence shows is that the Book of Enoch is not a dangerous, forbidden text suppressed by a vast institutional conspiracy. It is a casualty of historical evolution. It represents a specific era of ancient thought, a time when the boundaries between the spiritual and physical worlds were considered highly permeable. For early Christians trying to understand the origin of ancient evil, the story of the Watchers provided a compelling answer. But as the church institutionalized, those ancient answers were replaced by newer, more rigid theological models. Today, the Book of Enoch stands as a monumental testament to the diversity of ancient religious belief. Even though it is absent from the Bibles found in most modern homes, its shadow still falls across the pages of the New Testament. It reminds us of a time when the heavens seemed much closer and the greatest spiritual battles were fought against fallen angels descending upon ancient mountains. The mystery of its exclusion is solved not by searching for secret vaults, but by understanding the complex history of how sacred traditions are preserved. The Watchers may have been edited out of Orthodox theology, but their story survived the test of time, preserved by desert sands and faithful African monks. If you want our next investigation to examine the actual origins of the Nephilim and what ancient texts reveal about these mysterious giants, leave the word Nephilim in the comments.